We got a double countdown there. That was cool. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Really glad you are here, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or LinkedIn or someone else's YouTube and LinkedIn that they shared. So thank you all for being here. My name is Jay Rosenthal from Cultivated. We are a daily briefing covering the business, policy, and leaders of cannabis. And if you're not already reading us, head over to cultivated.news. It's right here, and get it in your inbox. I'll wait for you all to do that. Just kidding. I won't wait, but it's free. It's every weekday. It's in your inbox. And it is a great read. I hope you get it already, but if not, go find it. Today, we're launching something new, the Empire State Pivot, a webinar series we're producing with our partners at Lit Alerts, focused on one specific mission, helping New York cannabis operators move from the expansion phase into something more durable, more sustainable, and more built to last. And we're starting with the topic that is on every operator's mind right now in New York, but also in other markets. So it's relevant across markets, whether they're talking about it publicly or not, and that is price compression. New York now has more than, 550 dispensaries, maybe more, operating across the state, and it is a matter of fact. There was lots of consternation about the slow rollout for sure, but now that there is some scale, something industry hasn't reckoned with yet. The economics have fundamentally shifted. Getting a license used to be the hard part, if you remember that. Now it's surviving the margins. That's the hard part. And what we're going to do today is move past some of the headlines and get into the real mechanics of what's happening, and more importantly, what operators can actually do about it. Rick Bashkoff from Lit Alerts, he's going to join us in a second. He's got some data. We've got practitioners who are coming up, living this in real time, so we'll talk to them. And we've got a format designed to get to the useful stuff very quickly and in a repetitive way, because this is going to be the first in a series. So let me introduce the people who are going to make that happen. I'm going to bring up Rick. Hey, Rick.
What's up?
How are you? He's the CEO of Lit Alerts, which if you're operating in New York and you're not using their market intelligence, you absolutely should be, and other markets too. They track retail pricing, product movement, competitive dynamics across the cannabis market, and it gives operators an actual edge, and we'll talk to Rick a bit about that. He's going to open us up with the data picture, what pricing compression actually looks like in New York right now with real numbers. Rick, the floor is yours. Let me know when you want me to bring up your data.
You got it, man. Jay, thanks for having me, and thanks for partnering with us on this. Super important time in the New York market. I got to give a shout out to the Cannabis Collective. This conversation really started in those rooms. A lot of really smart people in that org, really chopping it up over a lot of different things that are challenging. But price compression, had a really, really great conversation about it about a month and a half ago. And that was really where this concept was born. I came to Jay and said, look, man, we should really get some of the operators on the horn here and start, sharing some of this information. So the goal here is just to kind of tackle some of the tough topics and have honest conversations about it, and allow myself and Jay to invite people who are living this every day, right? So Jay runs media company. I run a software company. We're not selling cannabis every day. And so our goal here is to just be the question, the catalyst to get operators, regulators, anyone who's participating on any of these tough topics, and really get them in the room and ask some tough questions. We'll be doing some more on things like the medical market, consumer, all different types of topics. So if anyone listening or anyone watching these clips, if anyone has any ideas for an episode, please be sure to reach out to myself or Jay. So price compression. So let's stop talking about what are we going to do when it's here. It's already here, right? And we've been watching this for a while. Lit Alerts kind of growing up in the Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey markets. The thing that's most alarming to us as just straight up data nerds is watching the rate of price compression moving a lot faster than we've seen in markets like Massachusetts and New Jersey. And so if you wouldn't mind, Jay, just bringing up really quickly, I'm just, nothing too in depth here, but wanted to give the folks here just an idea on some of those top categories where we're going to look at flower, pre-roll, and vapes. This is the last 6 months of the average pricing in the most common package sizes. So for flower, for example, you've got eighths, quarters, halves, and full ounces. Every single one of these lines is moving downward, right? There's a little bit of a recovery in the December time period, but we're all going down and to the right. If we move to the next one,
Yep.
I got it.
Yep.
So pre-roll is a little bit of an interesting thing going on right now with the 2.5 and 3.5 gram packaging, which has stayed a little bit more steady, and for some reason those two weights are kind of hovering in the same space. I think you have a lot of more premium brands that are in the 2.5 gram realm, which kind of drives that parity. But you're also seeing, look, we're starting, September on, for 1 grams. $13.58. We're now down, we're getting close to, under $13. And then finally, vapes, same story here, whether it's half gram, full gram, or 2 gram. You're seeing these prices start, and every one of these weights is losing $2 to $3 over the last 6 months. Now, the lines are not that dramatic, but this is. Right. So here's the summary that shows you at all of these different weights, unless you're selling eighths and pre-rolls, you're experiencing price compression. And some of these numbers are pretty scary. This is only a 6-month time frame. You're talking about 7-8% price compression. Now, in fairness, these are prices on, menu listing prices. So just make sure that, you keep that in mind. But this is really telling a pretty concerning story about the New York market at a time where we are, at a time where we are, opening more stores. We're getting to the point where, places like the capital region and else are getting saturated. So important time for us all to be not denying and not living in a clouded world here, and really just taking this head on. So yeah, I mean, I think Jay, we should bring in.
Yeah. Can I just ask one question, Rick, about the data itself? Because we sometimes, when we post your stuff, Little Alerts data, which we do on a regular basis every Tuesday, we do the New York brand power rankings. The second Tuesday of the month, we do the 8th index for East Coast markets. Then we do usually challenger brands in a market. This week was New Jersey. And then we grab bag for the last Tuesday of the month. But you just mentioned when you had the slide that was the pricing. Yeah. Right, and said somewhere down 8%. You said that is listed on the menus, but it could be more dramatic than that, because that doesn't account for discounts at cash, right? So like you're not capturing, that doesn't capture what it's actually sold for, which is generally not more than that, but oftentimes less.
Correct. No, we do capture if the menu, if the menu price is on sale on the menu. So we are capturing that discounting. But yeah, all the like loyalty discount, everything that comes after the fact. So yeah, so this is kind of a conservative look at this price compression. Yeah. And so, I think that one thing that I'll also say is that, I think New York, at least on the flower side, has been a little bit of a different market, in that flower has been being sold at, half ounces, like a lot earlier in the market than some of the others. Mm-hmm. And pre-roll takes a bigger share, right? New York City, pre-roll and vape take a little bit of a bigger share than some of the other markets, as pre-roll and vape, as the convenience factors become, at least the convenience smoke factors become a little bit more attractive if you're doing this, on a commute or living the city life. Yeah. So that's a good clarification.
Great. So now this is exactly the kind of information and grounding that we need for this conversation. So thank you. And you're sticking around. Obviously, you're going to drive the conversation next, but we're going to bring up Coss Marte. He's the founder of CONBUD, one of New York's most recognized cannabis leaders, and someone who has been building this business with a clear point of view about what this industry should look like and who it should serve. And Coss, we're going to bring up Yosek. And then Wyatt Harms, he's with Flamer, a brand that has been navigating the wholesale side of this market and thinking hard about how you protect your positioning with the pressure to discount is coming in every direction. And we'll talk about that as well. Also, this is important to know because it's self-reflective and it makes us look good. Wyatt was one of Cultivated's 30/30s, which is acknowledging late last year, folks under the age of 40 who are doing important work in the industry. So I'm going to bring them up, which means that he's obviously much younger than me and likely half my age. So this is I'm the grandfather of this panel now, but Rick, I'm going to hand it over to you, but Coss and Wyatt, thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having us.
Thanks, Jay. We appreciate you guys for being here. So I'd love for you guys to give an introduction. I think that if there's anyone in the New York market that's listening to this, they probably know you both by now. But if you guys can give a little bit of an intro, I'll start with Coss Marte. For me personally, CONBUD was something that I followed way back into the this will make you smile, Coss, the Canna Gather days with Josh and the team. So I remember all the way back then hearing Coss's story about CONBUD and the whole outfit that he has there. So and then Wyatt was one of the first people that we connected with when we had launched in New York, and so we've watched and seen Wyatt and Flamer really do an unbelievably impressive job of carving out, knowing their customers. So I'm really excited to have both of you. Wyatt, why don't you give your an intro first, and then we'll move it over to Coss.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, my name is Wyatt. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Flamer. We were one of the first 15 brands in the New York market, and we are New York and New York only. We started Flamer specifically for this market and out of the Brooklyn creative scene. What we do is we're really focused on building our community and our own audience. So we do a lot of direct-to-consumer marketing. We do a lot of events around the city, and we do a lot of cool kind of co-marketing initiatives, especially with our dispensary partners like CONBUD, to really spread the word of New York cannabis far and wide, and to invite more folks into the market. So we're focused on being more of a premium brand. Flamer is all about quality, from top to bottom. And what we want to put out into the world is excellent, from our creative to the actual cannabis that you're smoking. And that's our main focus. And so this topic is actually something that we have thought pretty deeply about from the beginning, and how to position ourselves, to make sure that we are one of those leading New York brands in the next couple of years.
Thanks, Wyatt. Coss, introduce yourself. I feel like you are a New York cannabis celebrity for sure.
Yeah.
So maybe there's someone out there who doesn't know you, but for those who don't,
this has been a crazy journey, and I appreciate you having me. And I think this is very important and crucial for what we're dealing with right now. And I think there's some light at the end of the tunnel, right? There's hope, right? But things are not looking good, And introducing myself, my name is Coss Marte, founder of CONBUD, and what we do is hire people coming out of the system, to work with us, or people that have been justice impacted, people that had family members inside as well. But that's our mission, and our mission to continue telling our story and spreading that wide, right? Who deserves more to be in this space, but the people that have been in this space, before it became, what it is right now, and I think that's where we don't want to go, right? Is not go down that line where we're buying from these fucking pharmaceutical companies and with a medical card. I understand you have to get medical. I support it, but everybody should get medical, and I don't think there should be any separation. That's just another piece of conversation. But I feel like there's where we have to fight that battle, right? The big wigs come in, discount so much, and we can't beat them. And then a lot of people fall into the trap, or even small operators. We already seen small operators fall into the trap where they run out of product, they're forced to buy product from them, and then they have bad relationships and things go south.
So let's actually, that's a good segue. We'll keep it here with you for a second, Coss. So when did you start to see the first real effect of what you just described, and unpack what you just said for us, for the folks who are listening, right? You're saying the big guys, so we're talking about the MSOs or some of the groups that have gobbled up, 5, 6, 10 locations under one brand. What is it that they're doing right now that is driving this? Obviously discounting, but when did you see that happening? And give us a little bit more of that background.
I mean, when I went into Curaleaf, right, and took a whole tour and saw 80,000 square feet of grow, right? How are you going to compete with 5,000 square feet canopy, right? And this is, multi turnarounds per year, not a little grow outside, Unfortunately, like we saw with Hudson, right? You know, and you grow your own stuff, but you run out of your product, so you're forced to get whatever product is available to continue that brand, right?
Yeah.
And so you're buying it, and then you're falling into their trap. I told John Cagiat this, you know, the ED at OCM. I was like, we need to figure out what's the division on the whole shelf space, right? There's no real calculation on like what products are really from the ROs or what real products are, you know, from small players, right? And already they already have rules, right? So they already have rules on the RO side where they only can hold 60-40, right? They have to hold 40% of the farmer's product. But what are they really testing that? Or really, you know, what's there's not even penalties behind going after that, right? You know, have rules behind going after that in OCM yet. So like,
and Wyatt, on your side, have you started to run into this where you're running out of supply, and you're kind of scrambling to fill, and maybe you do have to on a particular strain or something, again, like not trying to give any family, or maybe you have to skirt a little bit on quality because of supply, or have you guys been able to kind of hold that off?
Rick, yeah, like that's always been our problem is we have, you know, surging demand and we are, you know, trying to keep up with it. So we definitely have, you know, multiple times like in our history kind of like run into these problems with inventory and just like us keeping pace with the demand that we're seeing on our side as a brand. You know, I will say for us, like, we are really intentional about who we work with on the farming side. I think, you know, when we started, it was the AUCCs. So those were the first farmers that were affected by the hemp crash, and you know they were only allowed to grow outdoors, and you know they're folks that are mostly small family farms, you know, by and large, and during that first year through the cannabis grower showcases and all these different events, we were able to make a lot of relationships that first year with some of these really amazing and talented farmers who were doing some really great work and are continuing to like hone their craft season over season. So I will say we do on the farmer side, we've been ahead of that kind of game in terms of like getting the you know, being able to source from those farmers. But yeah, I think in general, like, you know, from the manufacturing side or like the, even just like the cash flow side of things, you know, when you're growing really quickly, it's like, we've always been kind of putting those puzzle pieces together to make sure that we're keeping up. But I will say, I don't feel like we've lost our, you know, ability to source from quality people. And that might be because of our, you know, position in the market as like a bit more of a premium brand. And so we are able to attract, you know, farm relationships that match us. But it is something that, you know, we've definitely had opportunities to buy from folks that are a little bit more scaled up, right? But maybe don't align in other ways. So,
right. And a pretty classic challenge, right, is the balance between value and scale versus premium quality, right? And I wonder, it sounds like, you know, if you're a value brand, you know, maybe this is less of a concern to you, right? Because you're kind of sourcing scale kind of is all part of the story, right? But a premium brand like yours and Coss, I'm sure you're, you know, I know you're carrying other premium brands. You know, I can see how this could become a real problem, just a lack of canopy and to Coss's point, like a lack of enforcement, right? So what were you gonna say, why?
And I will say it's a lot of it is like hard conversations, you know, with these farmers. Because, you know, ultimately like we are existing in a market and like the price per pound, like price compression affects the entire market, right? And that price compression is largely driven by the increasing capacity of these super large canopy spaces, right? So they're pricing their weed in the market as, and even in the wholesale market, you know, at a rate that is like forcing the prices down for these small farmers. And many of these small farmers that started that first year are now, either they're already out or they're like getting out, you know, because they just can't keep up with that price per pound. So it's been a tough conversation sometimes, like with those farmers.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Cost and talk. Thank you. And talking to a lot of folks like Wyatt and others in this space, like, you know, you're uniquely positioned, and like you've been here from the beginning of the market. Like, what do you see as, like, what should we be asking for? What should we be pushing on to help solve for this? Is it, and I don't mean to oversimplify this, but is it increased canopy for some of the smaller farms? Is it the ability to grow indoor? Is it what is it that you see could help balance this before it's too late?
I think balancing the shelf space, right?
Mhm.
Balancing that, you know, I think that needs to be there's where, and then also communication, right? We're never going to get anywhere without having everybody that's in this game in one room, right? And really talking about it and solving it. You know, I think it's always like just separate conversations, and you know, I feel like we need to show people the math, right? And show where every other state has failed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And say like, hey, if we continue this route, you know, the only people that win is not us, right?
Totally.
You know,
So what do you, to be like a little provocative here, like what do you say to someone who says, as this happens in every market, this is how business works, right? I hear these arguments all the time, right? This is how it works in CPG. The price is going to plummet. You have to get used to it. Either you're in the premium through it, whatnot. What do you say to someone like that? And how do we start to, again, like we all know that, you know, it's going to start at the top and it's going to go down. But I think what all of us who are very passionate about the market is like, how down is that down, right? Because if that down goes all the way to the floor, then we got a real problem that we've seen in other markets, right? So what do you say to someone who comes with that argument?
I mean, the reality is the reality, right? Like, I think the people that came first to market is gonna win as much as they can if they capture that market, right? And they do something well with their program, loyalty, whatever it is, and like retain that clientele. But I think the people, you know, I heard from you know, some group, I'm not even gonna say, but like they're averaging $600 and $1,500 in sales a day. You know, with that type of money, you're not gonna go anywhere, right? With right now, just search the 610 dispensaries already in New York State.
Yeah,
you know, we overpaced Jersey everywhere. You know,
yeah.
The market share is not there right now because the black market is huge, you know.
Yeah.
Enforcement is not really happening, you know. I don't know.
It sounds like I'm hearing so the putting requirements around shelf space to ensure that we're not swinging the pendulum too far in the way of value, right? Enforcement, I think I've heard that before. I think we've all been pretty upset with that, right? So, and I think, you know, me personally, very, very excited about John's appointment. I think that, you know, we may see something happen there with John at the helm. But I want to just for a quick second, I want to turn it back over to Wyatt, because I think that, you know, I look at the data, right? And so I can see that, you know, Wyatt, your brand has kind of effectively pushed back on this and haven't, you know, dropped prices as quickly as others. Can you take me through kind of the mindset there, and what are you guys saying internally? And look, like you've got one of your retail partners here, right? So tell us, how are you thinking about your retail partnerships? I think a lot of people are curious, like, look, if I'm gonna, you know, go the premium route, what does that look like, and what do I have to fight against, and what am I expecting?
Yeah, I think like taking a step back and just thinking about, you know, the broader market trends and like what we can think about as a market to push back on this price compression. One thing I really want to add to this conversation is we can expand the market. Like, you know, one way to combat falling prices is it to increase demand. And I think, you know, I don't want us as New York Cannabis to look at where we are today and be complacent and decide that this is the audience that we have to reach, and let's keep discounting for these existing buyers until they are somehow brand loyal because I've given them the lowest price. Like, that's not going to work. What's going to work is us bringing in new people to the market. Like right now, what New York is doing as a market is not its full potential. And there's so many reasons for that, from the existing illicit market, from like a whole host of reasons you can give for why we haven't reached it. I think now we are at a point as a market where we do generally have enough stores. That was one of the main issues. We didn't have enough stores to like sell through necessarily in the first like 2 years, and now we've reached a point where we do have a lot of stores we can sell through, right? And we have a lot of stores in really amazing locations that are serving communities that we can increase actually our volume. And so that's what I want to focus on as like a market, is how do we expand who is buying New York cannabis legally, and how do we bring more of those folks into the market? That's really our strategy on like a micro level with Flamer. Is like, our strategy is to grow our own audience, right? To bring more people into the stores and to work with our stores to bring those people in, right? So it's like we do a lot of pop-up events at the stores. We do a lot of co-marketing with our stores that we work with. We are specifically out at events that are not cannabis events, that are bringing cannabis to those events, like with our presence, right? And inviting those people back to shop at the dispensary. So that's what we really need to focus on as a market. And I think right now what I see is like, it's too insular, right? We're looking at the same consumer. We are all trying to talk to that same consumer that's already shopping at the dispensary. And like, that's great. Like, let's re-engage that consumer, but like, let's bring in more consumers, beyond just that one, versus focusing on that one existing consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think foot traffic is totally down,
Yeah.
And people are unaware, uneducated. I think there's people that, just look at their phones all day and they'll look up at a sign, and we barely could put a sign, so there's just a lot of issues on that part. But I think what he said is correct in terms of marketing and holding down to your consumer and finding more consumers. Like, that's why I'm in the store, like finding more consumers, getting those people that are going to the tenement museum, like Jay, and saying like, hey, yo, we got that bud across the street, for the dads that are bringing their kids. Or the old people that need, some bombs and shit like that, but also like finding those partnerships and those brands. Like, I was in the beginning, my max was like 650 SKUs, Right now we're a little bit over 400. I'm narrowing down those people and those partners who are really planning their marketing strategies, right, on how to get more people. I don't want to work with anybody that's bringing people into the store and putting a table and just falling asleep texting. Like, I'm keeping those people out of the store. Go set up in the corner outside. Fuck OCM regulation. We got to survive. I got $50,000 in rent I got to pay. This shit is not easy.
Right.
But I'm figuring it out.
And I wonder, Rick, if I may, because we had a pre-call with these folks, and one of the things that really struck me about Wyatt, what you said, was really honing who your ideal customer was before you launched, and who it is now, and being consistent to that, because it seems to me that understanding your customers so well, and same for an actual sort of retail operator, is really important about what they're understanding their purchasing habits, understanding their threshold for pricing, right? Right. Because there is this natural instinct to say, oh, my products need to be priced here because they are in this neighborhood. Right. Whereas like a certain location, a certain type of customer may not influence them in any way other than going to the store and buying your product. And while there is lots of competition, there is also a radius of people that are drawn to your store, Coss, that like you need to understand them so completely. And that's hard. Like, I'm just saying it's hard. And sort of the focus that you must have with you and your team, both before, during, and after you launch a product, is critical.
Yeah.
So you don't sort of go down this sort of discount drain.
Yeah. And I think specifically on that, it is understanding your customer and like, you know, creating your brand to appeal to that customer, to invite that customer in. But then also like even I think I would even shift the mindset a little bit of like it's really hard to do that to actually it's like it's actually really easy to bring in more people, right? Like it is, you know, when I think about New York specifically, like we have a ton of people here. You know what I mean? There's so many people that are so uneducated about cannabis that you know, like would be consumers of cannabis, would be consumers of legal cannabis, like all these kind of things. Like I think we are just actually really started as a market to like barely scratch the surface of what the demand could be in New York, you know? And like I think that we need to shift our focus. Like this is what we've done at Flamer, right? Where it's like our audience is, you know, creatives. It is like queer people. It is people in fashion. It is people in nightlife. It is people in like activism. It's people in the arts. You know, it's like we have this creative edge to what Flamer is, and there is millions of people, you know, that we can reach with that like marketing and that like kind of perspective. Because even if they that person doesn't maybe like see themselves as like that kind of creative individual, that it's aspirational for them anyways, you know. And so I think it's like looking at things with a little bit more of like, you know, I don't know, a bit more of a sense of like there's a lot of abundance and opportunity out there to reach and to capture, and like how do we go about like realizing that opportunity, you know, and bringing those folks like as a part of it. And I really think, just like to reiterate like 100 times, I think New York cannabis right now is too insular. I think it focuses too much on the existing cannabis consumer and does not bring in the cannabis curious consumer.
Yeah, I think listen, I think that is one of the strongest points made here, right? Is as one of the solutions expanding the market. Um, One thing, and Coss just touched on a little bit. This personally frustrates me, so I wanted to mark this down to talk about. Is, you know, always talking about. I hear the OCM and you hear this in other states too, talking about the importance of education, right? That's why how we bring people in. And I've always been really frustrated with this because on one side of their mouth, they're saying we need to educate people. On the other side of their mouth, they're slapping unrealistic marketing and advertising restrictions on you, right? Because the truth is that marketing and advertising is education, right? Like that's how you break through to people. Marketing and advertising can have a negative connotation to it, but it really, like the definition of the word, it's messaging to your customers, right? And you know, so how have you both navigated it, short of setting up on the corner? But you know, how have you guys navigated it, and how much do you think that specific piece of it, you know, kind of bolstering onto what Wyatt said, is, you know, how much of that is really blocking right now us expanding the market?
I mean, I stepped the line, and I think a lot of people are stepping that line, you know, and, you know, I think the regulators need to listen to us, you know, and talk to us and let them know like what's really working out there, right? And do it respectfully, you know. We don't have to put, you know, a big cannabis leaf in front of a school, you know, but like do it respectfully, where people, you know, as adults are walking by and they can see you and understand what you are, right? And or even talk about it, or even give samples. You know, I don't understand the fact that we have to give out fake samples in the store when brands do activations, like just to taste test. Like that shit is bullshit to me. You know, that makes no sense. Like I'm coming into the store to get high.
Yep.
You know, like that's what I need, or I
Yeah.
need something that's gonna help me go to sleep. You know, or medicate, whatever it is. Like, let me.
I think that's a good point, Cost, because I think that, you know, what we're and I get some flack for this, but you know, we're pitched the entourage effect and sativa indica hybrid and all these things, and you know, I'm of the opinion like trying and rinsing and repeating that process is all part of finding the products that work best for you, right? I come into your store, Cost, and problem sleeping. The first thing I try might not work. How do we get that customer back in to try the second thing? And I think what you're saying here is really leading the way.
And you know, even going to like the like liquor stores or whatever, like you on duty free, they got somebody sampling there. I'm in Mexico. I'm like, fuck it, I'm tequila. I don't know which tequila to buy. And yeah, I got 3 set up. Let me test something out. You know, let me see what I want. And I think, I don't know, we're a long way from doing that, but not a long way from doing it, because I'm doing it, you know. Like I'm doing a block party, you know, for 420, 418 actually, where we're gonna have like Jada Kiss on the block, and you know, and do something big, right? But like, hey, people gotta consume, and you could consume anywhere in New York, you know. So I'm technically doing it legally, you know, and there's where things we gotta figure out, right?
Yeah, look, both of you have not been able to get to where you are today without, you know, kind of pushing the lines, right? So, but Wyatt, what were you gonna say there?
Well, I think it's also thinking about like the spaces in which we could reach people, you know, naturally, and being outside of our, you know, even like taking cannabis like outside of the store, right? Like, I really do think thinking about alcohol as a as a model, as an example, essentially, like, I want cannabis eventually to be as distributed as like alcohol, right? And I want folks like Coss to be like leading the way on like what that actually looks like in terms of these sales through multiple places and multiple venues. I know, you know, the state is working on like an events kind of license, like those kind of things. But I think, you know, there is still this stigma around the plant and like where it can be sold and how it can be sold, that it just doesn't exist in the same way around alcohol, right? And even though alcohol in my mind is a lot more, you know, harmful in terms of its negative societal impact, like I think we can, as a New York, you know, state and like culture, we can think about like how do we actually like incorporate cannabis into more spaces like more naturally, so that it's like reaching more people, and specifically I think in those spaces that are 21 plus, you know. That's really where we as Flamer focus our efforts, is like we are in a lot of like nightlife venues, we are in a lot of like, you know, bar spaces, we're in a lot of like places that are explicitly 21 plus, so that we can reach the consumer, you know, still in compliance with the OCM, because like we know that that audience is 21 plus, but you know, it's cannabis branding like in those spaces. Can we sell in those spaces? No. Can we really sample in those spaces? Like not really. So it's like there's still a lot of those limitations that like makes it harder to, you know, connect the dots for people, because like right now it's a lot of like, oh, you should shop us at this store that's not here, and like, you know, I know it's has been an effect, like we see it, but it's still a little bit of a stretch, you know, from I think where we could be in the future. And that's where I want to like look at where we're headed, you know, especially like with the regulators, and think about what that future looks like, where cannabis is integrated into some of these spaces more naturally, especially legal cannabis, because like the reality is like when there isn't these regulations like set up, like one, you're either pushing people to alcohol, which is what is happening now, and you're seeing some societal backlash on that, and these venues are struggling because of that societal backlash, or you're incorporating some type of illicit cannabis right into those spaces. And so, you know, the reality is it's going to happen, and our is the legal market going to be the one to figure it out and to make it safe and to make it regulated? Like it should be, is my position.
Yeah, and I think that, look, I mean, just fuzzy numbers that are thrown around, right? Potentially $100 billion market. We're probably capturing somewhere between 30 and 35% of that across the country. I have to imagine that New York is following suit. So, you know, I have to imagine that, you know, we're going to be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't agree with that kind of top level suggestion, which is, you know, a great way to combat, you know, price compression and other problems is expanding the market and finding ways to do that. And I think that that's really sharp.
On that, Rick, one point I have, actually, I kind of want to make a little call out. Like, you know, one thing that I've noticed in the past couple of months is that there has been a shift from both dispensaries and from cannabis brands to start focusing really only on in-store events. And while I think in-store events are incredibly crucial, like it is very much a part of Flamer's strategy to have really great pop-ups, to have like really cool events in partnership with dispensaries. You know, we do this with CONBUD all the time. Like it's a good strategy, but like what I have seen in the market where there was appetite to go out into the larger world and start to reach people there and bring them into their store. And now there's been a shift in the past couple of months to specifically only focusing on in-store. And I think that is a losing game ultimately. Like, you know, you're not ultimately going to drive those people to the store in the numbers that you need to make that kind of activation like worth it in the long run. And you need to have a mix of in-store activations, and you need to have a mix of out of, you know, on the street, like out in the actual world, like bringing new consumers in. And I think specifically for cannabis brands like that are in the New York market, like you really, like you should be working with us to go reach those people, because like if you are just doing in-store events, like you are not actually reaching a broader cannabis consumer.
Yeah, agreed. I hit the streets like every single day. You know, I knock on a neighbor's door, I hook them up with a sample. You know, I tell them, hey, yo, just tell them that I give you a percentage off. Just tell them my name. You know, this going store from store, block from block, you know, is the only thing that works. Like, and that's what worked in the black market, right? That's how I did it. You know, I had business cards that I gave out to everybody I saw on the street that I thought used, you know, and it worked and it popped.
Rick, I want to be super respectful of Coss and Wyatt's time, because they have to do all the things they just talked about, but do it every day, as Coss said. Today is not different than that, although I do appreciate them spending their time and expertise. We'll have them back in this series as we progress. So Coss and Wyatt, thank you so much for joining us, and Rick and I are going to stay here and wrap it up.
We appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,
Legends.
They are legends. And actually, and we'll recap this to our audience and sort of in our newsletter as well. But the idea that this conversation so far has covered upstream, right? Like what about growers? What about the type of growers we need? We got a comment let me comment early on about this, about micro licenses to increase quality and demand. So Wyatt and others have more people to buy from, right? I think that's sort of part of it, but also shelf space, a lot about marketing regulations, a lot about how brands and retailers can actually reach audience aside from the folks that are coming into the store, which is a very important audience. How do you expand that pie even greater? And with that, I think the sort of second half of that sentence is, with that, you know, you can become much more price flexible in your operation and charge higher prices and have a premium. All of those things are super important. And this is a really good conversation, I think, Rick, that we kicked off today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, you know, I was really excited to hear kind of Coss and Wyatt's viewpoint on not just saying push back on pricing, because we all know that's not really what you can do, right? It's like there are market forces at play here that brands like Flamer and retailers like CONBUD are up against every single day. So it's really easy for us to sit here and say, this happens in every market, it's just going to happen, right? And, you know, I think that it's really nice to see, you know, just really passionate folks around like, hey, there's more demand here that we're not tapping into, right? It's like, you always think about the responses to these problems as super tactical, but I think that, you know, we heard expand the market, right? Consumer education, get out of the bubble, get out into the market, you know, increasing canopy and exposure for some of these micro license and other growers. But Coss's point about the shelf assortment, right? It's like it's a small tactical thing, but it is kind of like a broader that should be talked about. So yeah, I mean, that's the purpose of this. I think we touched on a lot of the things that people can dive into, and I'm looking forward to doing more of it.
Me too. And if you want to stay connected to what's happening in New York cannabis and across the industry, go to cultivated.news. That's my plug. And subscribe to our daily briefing, because one, it's free, but it's also every weekday. It's built for people who are serious about the business. If you want to dig deeper into the data Rick shared today, check out Lit Alerts. They are a resource for New York market intelligence and other markets as well. Every month, as I said, on our first Tuesday, we have New York brand power rankings, which is powered by Lit Alerts. Then on our second Tuesday, we have the East Coast 8th Index, which tracks a lot of this pricing. And then the third Thursday, we do challenger brands, those ones moving up the brand ladder in different markets. And as always, you can get everything at cultivated.news. Find Rick at Lit Alerts. And Rick, this was good fun.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you. Man.
We'll be out with the next one. Everybody will get notified about it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. We have our noontime show called This Week in Cannabis, live with our friends at High Spirits Podcast and Cannabis Musings. and us at Cultivated. So we will see everybody tomorrow and down the road. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Jay.